a poor AI experience. We can break something that works very well if we make wrong decisions or just put AI for the sake of AI just to have the sparkle somewhere in the product.
We are 2 years into the Gen AI era, and there's still plenty of uncertainty about how to best leverage AI to improve existing products. Ioana Teleanu will walk through her advice to designers and product teams looking to improve existing products. She was the lead designer AI at Miro and runs the AI Goodies newsletter.
You want to empower the person that uses AI in this context to feel safe, to feel in control, to feel like they can anticipate and understand what AI is proposing.
This is episode 24, and we're discussing how to leverage AI to improve the UX of existing products. We talk about challenges and opportunities for designers, the focus on solving real problems with AI solutions, understanding how intent is crucial for effective AI, the risks of ruining a good product by forcing AI on users, and deciding where and how to start leveraging AI in your product.
We had features and we had user testing sessions where we saw people invest more time in writing a prompt than they would if they would have solved their problem by just choosing a template. Sometimes this mission of AI accelerating your work defeated its own purpose because prompting wasn't very easy for many people.
Ioana Teleanu is the founder of AI-R Studio, a boutique design agency specializing in AI design. In the past, she shaped the experience of Miro AI as their lead product designer for AI, and UiPath's Clipboard AI, which was granted Time Magazine's Best Invention of 2023 award. She's the creator and instructor of one of the most successful courses on AI for designers. She also helps designers navigate the transformation of the AI by design space on her social channels, UX Goodies, as well as through the AI Goodies newsletter. Thank you for listening to the Design of AI podcast. We interview leaders at the forefront of AI to unpack strategies and lessons for designers and product teams. If you like learning about AI and how to grow your career, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting app. It also really helps us if you leave ratings and reviews. And if you never want to miss AI lessons and strategies, add Design of AI on Substack. This episode was hosted by Arpi Dragvi-Guerrero, the founder and head of product strategy at PH1 Research, and Brittany Hobbs, VP Insights at Huge.
Fabulous. Well, welcome, Iona. Thank you so much for joining us. It is so good to finally have you on the podcast. You've been such a big supporter of UX designers and offering them lessons and training, and really just putting out such a wide range of topics and conversation with it. So, why did you decide to invest so much of your time into this?
First of all, hi. Thank you for having me. I've been waiting to be a guest on your podcast, so I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm very excited to get to unpack my work in the AI design space. For your question, I started putting content out there. In the beginning, it was sort of a response to my own loneliness that I was experiencing as a junior designer in the industry. It felt like there's a stronger need of community. I still experience it, but as a junior designer, it feels like you're so lost and you don't really know where to get started. And so, because of that kind of experience of loneliness, I realized I want to reach out to the world, to the design world. And so I did that by putting out content, and there were two other important reasons. It sort of created a discipline of digesting everything I was learning. It was this exercise of crystallizing the knowledge, the frameworks, the processes, everything I was reading about suddenly became this kind of exercise of how do I frame this? How did I understand this? And how can I explain it to anyone who's interested in exploring whatever I read that week? So this was the second reason. And then it's also, for me, it was a very important self-reflection exercise. So I realized that by going out there, you really have to think about what you've experienced and distill your own experience, the thoughts, the learnings, the insights, and then bring them in a hopefully useful form out there in the world. But it was a very an exercise of self-reflection that kept me accountable, right? So I have to say things that have meaning, even if they have meaning just for me, but they're meaningful. And so yeah, it was, I think, in the intersection of these reasons, and they're not the sole reasons, but I think they're the main ones. And yeah, that's how I started creating content and building UX goodies, and yeah, here I am now.
That's really funny because a lot of people we've spoken to, they're saying work well with AI is being able to communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, your intent, frame your work from the perspective of structured information. So that skill set that you're developing is actually essential, but people don't get it because if all you do is work, 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 and you have to work with an AI, you have to explain what you do. And if you don't have exercise doing that, it's not going to work well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do have an advantage, right? So I've been doing it for a long time, and now I am. I think I had a head start in understanding how to prompt.
I also think that when we get in this mindset of just doing the work or completing the work and not really being reflective or reflexive to it, we're not really able to share, even just to teach ourselves what we should be doing next. And in a time right now, especially where it seems like a lot of people in the UX industry and in the design industry in general are struggling. It feels like a lot of people in product are drowning. They're trying to navigate all the changes that are happening. There's layoffs and reorganizations, people just being overworked, and then all these new tools coming in, and people feeling like AI will change everything, that they need to change themselves so much to work within AI. So, as someone who has been very reflective and who also shares and discusses with a lot of people within the community, how and where should someone start who maybe is feeling a little overwhelmed by all this change?
Oh, it's a question I keep exploring myself. So I don't have the perfect answer, but I do have some answers. I run a newsletter called AI Goodies, which is an extension of the UX Goodies work. And one of the recent episodes on AI Goodies was just around that, this concept of AI fatigue in a way that AI became overwhelming. So we've been going through a lot of stress, and now the economic downturn, markets are contracting, layoffs. And so it's not a nice moment in history. And then on top of that, are we going to get replaced by AI is what everybody's wondering. And I feel that there is a silver lining. And this is what I was trying to unpack, or at least I experienced it myself. I'm working in the AI space, but sometimes I hate AI. I mean, I hate all the hype around it. I hate how much is being misinterpreted, misused. Like we were thinking about it in the wrong way. There's this kind of perpetual chasing of like the AI race where companies are trying to win and just sprinkle AI in their products. I think that if we think about these leaps as opportunities, as something that we should be curious about, as you just look at it with the lens of curiosity and excitement. And what I personally do is try to play around with the tools and just experience the magic.
That's the right strategy. Now, you mentioned obviously that there's a lot of hype right now, and there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of excitement. A lot of people are focused on what model's out now and how it performs and all this, but that doesn't really impact a designer necessarily. So when you look back at the last year or two, what were some of the ways in which AI actually helped designers? Like, where was the impact? Is it specific products or approaches or mindsets that really had impact?
Well, I think we were all impacted by generative AI in general. So, just the idea of visualizing our thinking with the help of external instruments now. So, we have all these technologies that help us go from an idea in our minds. If we're able to articulate it, then we're able to visualize it. So, that's extremely powerful. And it also, in a way, challenges the role of the designer. So, I think there are still some companies or places in the world where the designer is seen as this producer of UI, right? So we're just producing screens, and when we come up with a solution, and then we go to the designer and tell them to make it pretty. If we continue to think about design with that lens, then design is pretty, yeah, threatened, right? Because generative AI will replace this producing of pixels. It's being teased by the products that are implementing UI generation, like Figma, Wizard, which was acquired by Miro. And so there are some products that are, yeah, working on generative design, if you want. So that means that as designers, I think we will have to build more capacity for business thinking, for, in a way, almost acting like product managers, in the sense that we have to be able to contribute to the strategy and really bring more the deep value beyond producing screens. And I think that designers will not be producers of design, they will be curators, if that makes sense. So I feel that we will just choose whatever helps us bring the mission and the intention that we have in mind, bring that to life. So I feel that what changed most is definitely this the generative AI revolution, and the ability to produce, just visualize our thinking and visualize product solutions with the help of AI.
Definitely, some big changes are coming. Now, are there any specific AI products that you might want to recommend people explore? Let's say something like Napkin. There's so many tools every month. There's crazy ones, but are there any you might want to recommend to the listeners?
Yeah, Napkin is super cool, by the way. Yeah, everybody should try Napkin. I'm personally experimenting with tools here and there. I feel that in terms of UI generation, I was a big fan of Wizard for many years. When they were acquired by Miro. I was already in a long-term friendship with them, so that was really fun. I think obviously try Miro AI. I like a tool called Kittle, which is kind of competitor to Canva, but I think their AI, the models behind work very well. And so you have a lot of more, let's say, control in how to generate visual artifacts. And I don't know, I'm using mostly ChatGPT. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. It's still the core of supports that we're getting. And I'm not using it to write with it, for example. It's something that I avoid at all costs because I feel that the exercise of writing is in itself the value, right? So just being able to express myself is something that I don't want to replace with AI. So the content I'm producing, I'm sometimes checking the grammar and so on. But yeah, I use ChatGPT.
This Design of AI episode is brought to you by PH1, a research and strategy consultancy that helps clients build AI products that customers want. Contact them about product discovery research to answer critical questions about what to build, competitive analysis to find out how to gain an advantage, service and customer analysis to identify the best use cases and value drivers, and workshops and concept testing to validate what will work and to fine-tune products. PH1 has worked on products for Spotify, Microsoft, the National Football League, Dell, Mozilla, Bell, and various health and higher education groups. Bring in an expert to make sure your products and teams are focused on what customers want. Visit their website to book an intro call, ph1.ca.
You mentioned about Miro AI. So you worked on shaping Miro AI, and I want to unpack that experience a little and see how we might be able to help other product teams navigate their own projects. So Miro, for us in particular, is a really interesting product. All of us who work in research, facilitation, strategy have used it in some point in time, especially when it comes to collaboration with people who maybe are not normally very collaborative. And so it's really helpful. So maybe for people who haven't used Miro, who might be listening, like the one or two of them, how would you describe why people use Miro and who its competitors are?
In a very simplistic way, you can think of Miro as an infinite canvas for collaboration. It's the place where people come together to collaborate, to bring their ideas in visual structures, to bring together all the information they have for a certain problem on a certain goal, an objective and common objectives, and then collaborate in processing that information, distilling it. Miro likes to say it's the innovation workspace, right? So it's where people come to innovate together in a collaboration exercise. It's much more than a whiteboard. It's much more than a canvas. It's just the place where the magic of people coming together to solve a problem in a common goal. In terms of who the competitors of Miro, of course, we're talking about other products that are surfacing this whiteboard experience with, of course, added capacities. And I think there's much more value if you think about it, even from a philosophical standpoint, right? What is a whiteboard? It could be anything, it could be a lot of things. It's the pencil and paper on which you come and create things, create magic, if you want, right? So, of course, our competitors are Mural. Figma launched FigJam a couple of years back, and that's also, of course, something that we're competing against. But now I think the market is shifting, and we're seeing new competition emerging from Zoom that added the whiteboard experience. Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT has a canvas now, right? So, or sort of a canvas experience. But the idea is that many products are moving into that kind of solving for the product development process holistically, right? And so Miro is also in that space, but we're more focused on collaboration and enabling people to come together and solve problems.
Now, what's interesting about the project that you're working on here with Miro and how to integrate AI into it is it's not a data platform. Like, you're collecting qualitative data. It's very unstructured data, which is exactly what's the hardest thing for AI to process. Unlike accounting platforms or marketing platforms, like when we spoke to people from Clavio, they already have a data set, and it's how to better comprehend that data set, how to leverage that data set. What would you consider that Miro's big advantages were when you were designing the strategy of, okay, let's figure out how AI can transform this? What was it that you looked at Miro and said, okay, these are its core assets that we can leverage?
Yeah. So in my time at Miro, I think the biggest challenge or the biggest advantage or the thing that I was most excited about, and my team as well, we were very excited about the open-endedness of a blank canvas, right? So even, and that also lended itself to the potential of surfacing AI in this kind of very flexible and elastic space, right? You could go anywhere. And if you would ask me what are the disadvantages that I've experienced in my time at Miro working as the AI product designer, the answer is the same. It's the open-endedness, which also came with a set of challenges, right? What we were most excited about was this capacity to go in any possible direction. We could use these technologies in so many ways. It was in many ways a creative exercise, and we were trying to surface the right data. Miro is a place where people centralize data. We had a lot of information about how people work. The research team at Miro was incredible, and we also had a lot of studies that we could reference, but still there was a lot of ambiguity that came with this open-endedness and the multitude of ways in which people use Miro. Some people use Miro to decorate their rooms, their new homes, or just prepare the party. It could be anything. And so how do we surface AI in a way that is meaningful and that is not obtrusive, and we're not forcing it on them? It really helps them solve for a real scenario and a real problem. And so I think this was the most exciting part. We had a lot of information and still a lot of ambiguity. It was very ambivalent, but we had a lot of potential to go in multiple ways and experiment with multiple AI mechanics or AI patterns.
What I find challenging about what you're saying, though, is people are using it for everything. And if I were to process that data set, it would be hard to know what the intent is. And when we go back to the first principles of designing with AI, is if you know people's intent, you can start leveraging the tools to present their solutions earlier than they would have otherwise. Is there
Yeah.
a way in which you can assess people's intent when you look at the data in Miro?
It's one of the most interesting questions. There are ways. The purpose of capturing intent is to serve them on AI accelerator or some sort of AI facilitator action. So, okay, I think you're doing this, so this might help you. This is what I feel would be a good next step for you, or this is what I feel would accelerate your work. The point of understanding intent is to surface what are relevant actions in relation to that intent. Now, you're entering the realm of clippy where you could become noisy, and if you didn't really deconstruct that intent properly, it could be like people are less and less forgiving with AI. I think in the beginning there was this, even when you saw the sparkles, you knew that this was something probably experimental, it's beta, companies are trying out all sorts of AI things, and I think people were generally forgiving with how AI kept maybe failing or underperforming or not living up to the expectations it created in the marketing messages. But I think people are less and less forgiving now. So if they try this AI action that you surface and you think is relevant, but if it's not relevant and this happens once, twice, three times, then they're going to dismiss the experience completely. So it's like a very fine line you're walking on when you're trying to kind of meet them where they are and surface the relevant thing in relation to the intent. But I think to your question, yes, this is the juiciest question in my work at Miro. How do we figure out what the user is trying to do? And there are some easy goals, or like sometimes the user might, I don't know, put a couple of stickies, and then we can figure out, okay, if they're building relations between these stickies, maybe it's a diagram and maybe we can turn it into a diagram. But sometimes it's much more complex and sophisticated and nuanced. And so how do you build in the mechanics, and how do you construct the algorithm of decoding what's going on the canvas, right? And of course there are ways, but it's very, very tricky.
If you like learning about AI and how to grow your career, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting app. It also really helps us if you leave ratings and reviews. To get more AI and career resources, also subscribe on Substack at designofai.substack.com.
Yeah, I was working with a spreadsheet last night and I had this question come up to my mind. I was like, why have spreadsheets not advanced significantly? It's the same reason as they're just a canvas, they're just more structured. And where
Yeah,
you see the GenAI tools leveraged in there is they're trying to assess what you're doing from like a micro task level, not from like a vision level. And I'm
exactly.
assuming that's the path you ended up taking, was it?
Yeah, what was very interesting in the AI team was that we were trying to experiment a lot, but I think the stakes were pretty high. Like, the problem with Miro and AI is that Miro is a great product, right? People love it and they understand how to use it. And there's a lot of excitement when you come together to collaborate and you have all the tools you need there. And so it's a very good product. And a poor AI experience, we can break something that works very well if we make wrong decisions or just put their AI for the sake of AI just to have the sparkle somewhere in the product, right? So I think that on one hand, we were trying to move very quickly to experiment and learn. And are people using the remove background in Miro, or are people using, I don't know, rewrite for clarity from the text editing options with AI? We were trying to learn, but at the same time, we were very, very careful. And that sometimes translated into being a bit slow because we didn't want to ruin a very good experience, right? So this product was working. It didn't really need AI to survive and make users happy, right? So AI was not, and still is not, fundamental to Miro's experience. So to your question, if we went for a granular of AI in small controlled scenarios where we had more confidence that this might be the right action to propose, we experimented a bit with that. We associated AI actions to templates. And of course, we can understand what that template might be used for. If it's a retrospective template, we understand, okay, so people are probably doing a retrospective. So it's safe to say that this action would help them in that context. But it was very controlled. And in a way, we played it safe. But I think it's still what products should do in general, because AI is just a tool to solve a problem. So if you don't find a right problem, just don't do it for the sake of doing it. And I think it's a healthy mindset, right?
Well, I also wonder because you mentioned the product was already working really well, people were really satisfied, and you entered into AI tooling territory quite early. So, how was that decision made, and how did the team get on board to say, yes, we should start doing this, even though the demand in the market wasn't necessarily there yet?
I think that this is a question that the entire tech industry should ask and reflect on, because most companies, I think it's slowing down and we're seeing more like people coming back to their senses. But for the past couple of years, it was just this insane AI party where everybody was scrambling around to have AI in their products to remain. I mean, we still see, I think I read a message from the chief product, LinkedIn post from the chief product officer at Intercom, which is a company I think is doing a great job in product wise. At least this is the perception I get from the outside. And he was saying that if your company is not yet AI first, you lost. And in a way, I really don't believe that because we saw it. Like, people were just running around trying to have AI in their product and be able to communicate AI in their big events. And just there was this frenzy of having AI. And I don't think it took these companies in a much better place. I don't think it moved the needle for the product or the usage or the user satisfaction. So I feel it's good that we're, in a way, slowing down and starting to go back to being very intentional about the problems we're solving and the solutions we're surfacing in our products. So when I joined Miro, the AI team had been already assembled. It was partly because the entire market was going in that direction, right? So we need AI in our product. We need AI in our company. We need to build these teams. We need to empower people to do AI experiments and understand how to protect ourselves from being left behind in this revolution. And so I think that this, to circle back to the earlier, one of the first points we were making with the AI hype, I think the hype is starting to fade. Like we all see these AI talks, even my talk has this part where I reference Gardner's hype cycle, and we're past the point of the peak of inflated expectations. And now people are starting to understand that, okay, AI is not fundamentally changing the products that we use, at least not today, but it's going to be a slow journey. It's going to be hopefully a controlled and intentional process by which the technology and the product we use will evolve. But AI is not replacing the products that we use, if that makes sense. So Miro is still a canvas. It's not AI. You go to AI, you go to Miro to do AI stuff. You go to Miro to visualize your thinking and collaborate with people. I think even in the AI team at Miro, one of the constant exercises we were doing in my time there was to ask, does this problem need to be solved with AI, or is there a conventional way to solve this problem that might be better? Even as the AI team, we were supposed to champion AI, do everything with AI. We really had the role of thinking ethically and, like, in a way, responsibly about how to surface AI. And if there was a better way to solve a pain point, then why not go for that?
So, okay, not having AI for the sake of AI and asking the question of does this need to be AI or could it be solved better through a more traditional method, which is a great sort of principle or foundational set of parameters. What other type of design principles or guidelines or goals did you and the AI team at Miro enter into this process with to ensure that you, especially as the first product designer on the team, to really make sure that you were building something that was meaningful and useful?
So this was part of my role. This was something that I really strived for, putting in place a set of principles and a strong framework that we can socialize across the company. And then why not even outside of the company build this? Because the problem with AI and design is that there are no established patterns, there are no rules, right? So many times you're going in a space of complete ambiguity or exploring a potential path for the first time, maybe, right? So I really strive for disambiguating the space and bringing clarity and bringing a set of, let's say, references, principles that people can reference when they're making decisions around AI. And a thing that was very important to me was, of course, not the one that I already mentioned, to make sure I don't alter or ruin a very good experience, but also make sure that I meet the user so that AI meets the user where they are, and that happens in a meaningful way. So be a core principle, I think, is do not interrupt the user when they're doing creative work, but help the user when they're stuck. AI shouldn't feel intrusive, it shouldn't feel obtrusive. So this was something that we were really striving for, understanding how to help people go from one stage to another when they feel stuck. And then, of course, the ethical part, make sure that AI feels like a trustworthy experience, that it's obviously moderated in a way that doesn't feel aggressive. This is common sense by now, right? But it's something that we still need to articulate as a principle, because otherwise we're not measuring it. We're not judging the experience against it, and that's important. How do you make sure that this feels like an ethical, a nice partner in your work, and it's not, yeah, just a anxiety inducing experience? Because people in Miro, we've learned that people are a bit reluctant to creating things with AI because they don't know what's going to get created on the canvas. So they type a prompt, and then what will that prompt generate? What if it's something weird? What if everybody else on the canvas will see that? And so you want to empower the person that uses AI in this context to feel safe, to feel in control, to feel like they can anticipate and understand what AI is proposing. And I think it's really, really valuable is, can AI become an agent of culture? So can AI facilitate better collaboration? Can it help the shy person express themselves better? Can it help make the conversation more fair? So we're using robots to help us work better together. But I think there's a huge opportunity there in the context of workshops or live exercises. My assumption is, and I don't have confidence on this, but I feel that across companies, we're pretty much seeing very similar principles. Like most companies operating in the AI space or embedding AI in their products, they're looking to achieve this in an ethical way, in a way that protects the user, in a way that doesn't disrupt the experience. So I think that we are building some standards as an industry. We haven't just yet set them in stone. And I think it's just the nature of the AI space, which is ever evolving and like a very rapid pace of transformation.
Now, I want to imagine what it's like being the product manager in all this, because I'm sure when they started this initiative, there's like 1,000 things they could have done. There's probably 500 of them that are good, maybe 20 of them that are high priority, and there's just not enough people to tackle these problems. So, how did the organization decide where to focus? Because I could just imagine so many ways that this could have gone.
You're right in assuming and anticipating that the role of the product manager is, I think, in general, in any company, and it was the same for my time at Miro. It's a very difficult position to be in because with other, let's say, features or conventional solutions that you surface in your products, there's more clarity. You have more clarity from the existing knowledge in the company, from what the users are saying. No user would ever come to Miro to say, it doesn't have enough AI. I want more AI here. You know what I would love? Some AI. I mean, people don't search for AI. They don't explicitly ask for that. I mean, not now, maybe in the future because of the mental models and like if all products achieve something with the help of AI, everybody will expect that as well in your product. And so they might ask for it. The knowledge was very ambiguous. The leadership has clarity on where we want to go, what are the company goals, and so they help you translate those goals into features or a roadmap, right? But with AI, again, like nobody knew, like even us, the AI team, sometimes we didn't really know what is the next best thing to experiment with. I've always worked closely with product managers, but in my time at Miro, I think I had the closest collaboration because we really needed to stay very close and have these, let's say, perpetual conversation, never ending conversation to try to find meaning in what we're doing and choose the right things.
So, how did you ultimately decide which areas to focus on and ultimately whether those things worked? Was it through research? Was it through data? Was it just leadership picking something? Was it a competitive exercise? How did you decide where to focus and whether it worked?
We had a couple of experiments for each of the things you've mentioned, right? So some things we had one kind of feature that was trying to neutralize competition, right? So and that was the goal of it. And but most of the times we were trying to root everything in research. Again, like I was saying earlier, we had a very strong research team. So we had a lot of insights that we can look into. And so we were trying to find the dominant insights. So this is the theme that keeps popping up. This is our biggest problem. Let's try to see if AI can do something for our biggest problems. And then there was also this kind of layering of questions. What is the next thing we need to find out about AI in Miro? And so we were, in a way, prioritizing questions instead of prioritizing features. Like, what do we want to learn next? For example, a very concrete example. Do people want to edit text with AI in Miro? Since this is not a text editing, this is not Notion, this is not, right? It's not Google Doc. Do people want to edit text with AI? And so we actually build, you can't answer these questions without launching the actual feature, right? So we built text editing capabilities and then we try to measure. And now we have hopefully the question answered, right? Do people need text editing in Miro? Is this because it's a big category of things, right? Which you can apply on sticky notes, classic text widgets, even collaboration. We had now docs in Miro and so on. And so we were prioritizing questions. At least this was what we were very intentional about doing. What's the next important thing or important bet that we need to find out? And let's just build it and learn. But to your point, sometimes we did have these features that were trying to keep us competitive in a certain space. So it was like the classic challenge of prioritizing things with an extra layer of ambiguity and risk taking. What helped us most was, yeah, just having a lot of conversations. It might sound very basic.
It's good to know that research played a big role because, again, it sounds like some organizations are not doing any research and they're just taking leaps of faith. But you
No,
brought up this idea of ambiguity. You brought up this idea of maybe there was something else we could have done at the beginning. And when I look back, I used Miro for the first time almost 10 years ago. It was called Real Time Board at the time.
yeah.
Miro had come out. And in fairness, it was super novel back then. This was 2016, I guess. But that's almost 10 years ago. Is there room for disruption in this space? Is there room for a change in the paradigm of how we help people get through the problem space? Is there something that you perhaps go back to and wish maybe we would have taken a different approach?
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I also used Miro when it was real time board. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I wish I would design this someday. So it was an instant fascination with working as a designer in this product space. So I think there is room for disruption. I think Napkin is going in that direction. So Napkin really gives you visual structures on the spot, and then you can select. For me, for now, is a very strong reference of how people can visualize words. So even on the problem of making sense of information, it's still a convoluted process, right? So now AI can help you, I don't know, create summaries and so on, but it's still quite an effort, right? So you're looking at a big board with a lot of things. It's loading slowly. You have to process all the comments, everything that happened there. And AI is good at in reading and interpreting and distilling large volumes of information. But at the same time, you're losing the exercise of going through the user insights and thinking about each of them. And then some, maybe there's a quirky angle in one of them, and you're going to miss it if AI creates a summary that's very generic.
So when we spoke to Yasmin Chanbarolu, the first designer working on Microsoft's Copilot alongside OpenAI, she expressed how challenging it was just designing AI products because it was a blue sky innovation exercise at that point. She could take it in so many directions, but didn't really have any ideas about what would work or what people wanted to use. So it was completely new. Thankfully, when you were designing AI features into Miro, there were already some precedents that you could use as an inspiration and guide you along. What products inspired you as you were going through this process, especially at the beginning?
It's interesting that I don't feel as much that there were necessarily products that could inform. I think the problem of a whiteboard, infinite possibility world is very specific to Miro and of course to FigJam and Mural, but there weren't a lot. I mean, when I joined Miro, Figma had just launched in FigJam this AI bot called Jambot, but it was very experimental and it didn't really bring a lot of value. It was hard to use, not very intuitive. It didn't work as you expected it. I couldn't really reference that in my work. I think Notion was doing a good job at being decent in the way they surface, they experiment with AI. It was really, and even today, I feel that I didn't have, yeah, just a, oh my God, this is a really nice experience feeling in products that are trying to add AI on top of an existing product. It's hard, right? You're retrofitting AI into something that, like Copilot is the ultimate example of retrofitting AI. We need to add AI to this. How do we do it? Let's just add another surface on top of the surface where the user sits. I don't feel like I had a lot of external help informing my thinking with what other products were doing. But what really helped me was my previous experience. Before joining Miro, I worked on a product called Clipboard AI. It was a product within UiPath, and it actually won Time Magazine's Best Invention of 2023 award. So we were like, okay, we invented something. That's great. It was a fun moment. And it was my first deep experience with LLM based products and understanding the ambiguity of AI experience and how this like what Jacob Nielsen talks about, the new UI paradigm, and how we have completely reversed the locus of control. Now people don't lay one command on top of the other. It's not command based anymore. It's like we're capturing their intent. They tell us what they want to achieve, and then we do that for them. And so it was the first time I encountered these new challenges and principles. And so that's when I realized that the biggest problem with AI was this non-deterministic aspect of it, right? So the fact that you couldn't predict what was going to happen, always also had a hard time measuring if what happened was good or was what the user expected. So what really helped me at Miro was my previous experience, and I think that's why I got the job as well. I was one of the few people in the market that were already working in the AI space for a while.
It'll be interesting to look back at this time and wonder how many of these AI integrations are actually going to be valuable, because you're right. When I look at these products that layered in a prompt on top of a tool, that doesn't add specificity. Even like Descript, which we're using here, or Figma, like I don't need a prompt to then generate more stuff. I want to get closer to a solution. I want guidance. I want to feel like there's an expert there. It just makes me constantly go back and wonder, because you're in the problem space. This is exactly where these tools should be helpful. Is there some way in which you wish the team would have challenged itself a bit more, perhaps, or a new paradigm in a sense? Because I'm so desperate for help to take unstructured stuff and turn it into something, and I don't need a prompt. That doesn't help me, right? That's not the solution. So what is the solution?
Yeah, I think you're making great points here, and I don't know which one to unpack first. I want to make an earlier point about a point for your earlier question as well to finish on what helped me. But another thing that helped was accepting that people already have some mental models from ChatGPT. And so the product that we had to reference, even though it wasn't necessarily the world of Miro, was ChatGPT, because people were coming in with these expectations. Already they had mental models around how AI works. Oh, but this is how I do it in ChatGPT. So to your point, what we could have done differently, I would have said a while back, we need to disrupt more. We need to experiment more. We need to build playgrounds for AI where we're potentially making mistakes, but let's just do that. But I feel that we took the safe path, right? For very good reasons, not ruin a good product. So we always thought that if people can generate the things they need on the board with the help of AI, then they're gonna save time. But some things should be generated with a click of a button, not with a lengthy prompt. And we had features and we had user testing sessions where we saw people invest more time in writing a prompt than they would if they would have solved their problem by just choosing a template. So sometimes the purpose, this mission of AI accelerating your work became like defeated its own purpose, because prompting wasn't very easy for many people. There's this concept of the articulation barrier. Some people come in and they don't know what to prompt. They don't know what's the necessary information for whatever it is I'm trying to achieve. And especially with the open-endedness of the potential anything they want to achieve, you can't really templatize that easily. So it was this challenge of, okay, we're going to help people generate something quickly with the help of AI, but then they spend more time writing a prompt and thinking about that prompt and refining it and fine tuning it. And so we weren't necessarily saving time. So that was one of the, let's say, not hard lessons, but interesting and obvious, significant lessons.
Well, you mentioned as well that one of the big learnings that you had was about experimenting more, creating more of an AI playground. So let's talk really quickly about just the unbelievable pace at which competitors are coming to market now. And, let's talk about for Miro, for example, in such a dominant player in that market for such a long time. But now we have new startups, for example, like Cove. where it is kind of like if you've taken ChatGPT, but then the outputs of it show up on a board and it's collaborative and it's much more visual, whiteboard style. Do you feel that having new entrants like this that are really pushing the boundary of what that space has been are inspiring new possibilities, or is that creating more challenges for dominant players?
I feel like we've seen it in multiple industries in the past, right? So I personally have worked for 10 years in ING Bank. So I was in the banking system, and that was, I think, one of the industries and spaces that was most disrupted by small players. So they were very slow, and then they really had to accelerate because Revolut came up, Monzo, N26, all these small players that really, in the end, won in many ways, right? So I think it's the same with any big player in the market. If like when you're big, of course you have like you dominate and you have a lot of resources and you have power and people know you and you're visible and there's awareness. But the advantage of smaller teams is the velocity and the capacity to innovate and break things and leave whatever didn't work behind very easily. They're just more agile. And so I feel that the emergence of, and even to your point, it's not just small players like Cove, or of course, Mural has other smaller competitors, not just Mural. But it's not just that, it's that other products like Eraser, which is doing diagramming, that's a Mural competitor. Zoom is now a Miro competitor, Microsoft, and so on. I remember when I was in banking and we were just waking up to realize, oh my God, this industry is changing. We have to adapt and like do it fast. We were talking about how our competitors are now Apple, and it's like, I don't know, Netflix in a way. It's just capturing the attention. There were all these odd realizations that now we're not just competing with another bank. So Miro is not competing with Mural or other whiteboards or FigJam. It's competing with a lot of that help you visualize things and collaborate and ideate and make progress and gather information. Notion could be considered as well a Miro competitor. And so, because it's a way in a place where you go and structure things and invite other people, and it's also a collaboration space, and it's just a way, a platform to host knowledge, which Miro is as well, but in a more visual way. So, yes, I feel that all these products and the way they're interpreting AI and adding AI in their experience is something that's fundamentally inspirational. I think we should all pay very close attention to what everyone around us is doing, because you can learn a lot from how others are failing, but you can also learn a lot from how others are succeeding. It should be part of our job description. Competitive benchmarking, right?
Yeah. So I'm sure we've overwhelmed people with a lot of information. Perhaps some of it seems a little challenging. I'm wondering if there's any simple lessons or resources you might want to share with people just so that they can feel like this hill is something they can tackle on their own.
Well, I think it's a very simple, straightforward message: solve real problems. I think that we are all in this kind of where we've been taken away by the wave. We're in a technology driven mindset. AI can now do this. We can generate things with AI. How do we generate things with AI in our products? And I think it's the right angle to look at it. We should go back to thinking about what are the problems and friction in our products. How can my product be easier to use? I don't need generative AI. I need to make my product better. And is AI a vehicle for that? And it's one of the reasons why I chose to not be part of an industry or a company anymore, but start a boutique design consultancy studio. What I've experienced in my time at Miro is that I'm narrowing my thinking into this problem space, but AI is going to be just a layer on top of everything. So it's like the way, to your point, Brittany, from earlier, the way it's surfaced in, I don't know, tools like Tome or Napkin is relevant to Miro in a way. So I want to have a stronger impact in different industries and different problem spaces. So I feel that, yeah, and I wouldn't call it agency, but a design studio, a consultancy studio can open the door to understanding, like starting to connect the dots between multiple industries and multiple problem spaces.
Fabulous. This has been such a great loved conversation. I love learning from you. Where is the best place for people to follow along with your writings and your analysis and just continue to engage with this thinking that you're putting so much effort into?
Most of my thinking is being translated into my newsletter. It's called AI Goodies, and I think it's the place where I extensively share my views and my experience so far, and also, yeah, everything I'm learning from this new journey into consulting startups and large companies that are trying to tackle the AI problem. So that's where I will distill all of these knowledge and, yeah, findings. But also on LinkedIn, you can search by my name. I'm active on LinkedIn, and on Instagram, you can find me as UX Goodies, which is my community of, yeah, design enthusiasts.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Design of AI podcast. We interview leaders at the forefront of AI to unpack strategies and lessons for designers and product teams. If you like learning about AI and how to grow your career, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting app. It also really helps us if you leave ratings and reviews. This episode was hosted by Arpi Dragvi-Guerrero, the founder and head of product strategy at PH1 Research, and Brittany Hobbs, VP Insights at Huge.